Many moons ago, ladies and gentlemen, I was on the hunt to try to find a job. And I'm going to be honest, 3 months in no phone calls, I was getting pretty hopeless. But I wanted my shot. I wanted the opportunity that would change my life. So instead of waiting for someone to knock on my door, I decided that I needed to create my own opportunity. And so I put the pen to pad and started writing jokes to become a stand-up comedian. Then one night, one fearless night, I got up on that stage and I became the stand-up comedian. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There is nothing more awkward than delivering the punchline of a joke, realizing that no one was even listening to you. But what I learned, and the amazing thing about comedy, is that it lightens up the truth. It disarms people to laugh about the absurdity of everyday things. And I think the best type of comedy is simply just stating the truth. In the United States, we're a very serious bunch where we think that we base all of our decisions off logic and reason. But for such a serious bunch, when you think about some of the decisions that we make, especially with our money, it is hilarious. So in this video, I just simply want to state the truth and talk about things that people do with their money that are just hilarious, and 12 silly things that people do with their money. And spend your money however you like, but that don't stop it from being silly. And the first thing is going to the store without knowing what you're going to buy. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most absurd things that I've seen people do with their money is go to a store without even knowing what they're going to buy. Instead of saying, I need a broom, so I'm going to go to the store, they say, I'm going shopping. And there's actually a store that's dedicated to buying things without knowing what you're going to buy, and it's called Target. And Target has successfully turned their brand into the action verb Target run, where you see commercials of people saying, I'm going on a Target run, you need anything? And then the whole family goes off to Target, comes back with a bunch of things they didn't know they needed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a silly thing to do with your money, because if you don't know what you're going to buy, then you don't need it. But hats off to Target for turning their brand into an action verb, because that ain't easy to do. And the second thing is paying someone to bring you cold food. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have never used a delivery app like Uber Eats in my life. I honestly couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I made that decision. But from what I've heard and what I've read is that the average delivery time is 30 to 40 minutes. So you order it on the app, the restaurant makes it, the driver picks it up, and 30 to 40 minutes later, you have a bag of cold food delivered at your doorstep. And it sounds silly, but it's becoming more and more of a thing every single day that people can't live without. It's a silly thing to pay nearly double the price on a cold meal delivered at your doorstep than just go pick it up for a hot meal at almost half the price. But I guess that it keeps the economy moving. And the third thing is car payment addictions. I've met many people from many different walks of life, and I've learned that no matter who you are addicted to something. We're all addicted to something, ladies and gentlemen. Someone out there could even be addicted to watching my videos, and it would be an honor, but at the same time, the internet is a strange place. But one of the strangest addictions that has failed to be mentioned on the show, My Strange Addiction, is car payments. People are addicted to car payments, especially in our society where people will spend 5 years paying off a car, and then the second they pay it off, they say, I want another car payment. And so they go out and buy another car. They just can't get enough of car payments, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a silly thing to think that people are addicted to paying car payments, but that is the world that we live in. And the fourth thing is upgrade addictions. Another addiction that has swept the nation since Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in 2007 is the upgrade addiction, where people would stand in lines for days for the new version of something that is almost the exact same thing. Once they start putting 3 cameras on the back of a cell phone, that is when they're starting to run out of ideas, ladies and gentlemen. But to prevent you from knowing the absurdity of how much they are upgrading it, they have introduced letters instead of numbers, so you can't tell as easily how many versions of it. And the upgrade addiction keeps you forever dissatisfied, because they'll never stop upgrading things until they run out of space to put cameras on the back of the cell phone. And it's a silly thing that people are addicted to upgrading things, but it is proven that people will wait days in a line for almost the exact same thing. And number 5 is getting congratulated for purchasing something. If someone ever tells you congratulations after you just bought something, you were ripped off, and you were ripped off big time. You see, if I go to the store and buy a broom, I give them the money, I keep the broom, and that's it. But if I go somewhere expensive like Tesla or Apple and I pay to buy something extremely expensive, they will probably congratulate me on my purchase. Congratulations for buying your Tesla Model S Plaid. And what that basically means is that there are no other words to say that you just got ripped off. Congratulations, sucker. It's a marketing strategy that makes you feel proud of spending a lot of money on something. But it's a silly thing to do because you didn't win the item. You bought the item. And the sixth thing is paying more for words. During college, I worked at a famous bakery cafe chain for 5 years. And during that time, I could never understand why people would spend $15 on a sandwich or a salad until I realized that these people aren't spending money on the food. They're paying for the words. You see, at this restaurant, most of the food was extremely processed or frozen. I mean, the soups came in frozen bags. The juices were from concentrate. And majority of the pastries were just out of the freezer that we would put in the oven. But when you looked around the restaurant, you saw words like fresh, natural, and organic. So from the customer's perspective, they thought that grandma was in the back chopping up broccoli to put in the soup. But they were spending so much money just on these empty words. You know, words are powerful, and people will spend crazy amounts of money when you use certain words. But it's silly to think that they would do this because these were just empty words. In number 7, payment plans for something under $100. From the words of Kevin Hart, life's funny, ain't it? Sometimes you just gotta laugh. I understand taking on a payment plan when something costs a lot of money, but it's silly to think that someone would take on a payment plan for something that costs under $100 that's not a necessity, like using Afterpay to buy a pair of jeans. It's just plain silly, ladies and gentlemen, but companies know that we don't always have the money, and that don't stop them from trying to find new ways to get us to buy it. But it's silly to think that you would take out a payment plan for something that's not a necessity that doesn't cost that much money. And the 8th thing is buying a big house to only use 20% of the space. I'm sure that we can all agree that it's a dream to live in a big house or a mansion. I mean, sometimes I drive through the rich areas of where I live and I just think I want to live in these houses. I want to have a house with 5 bedrooms, 3 living rooms, and a theater. But the reality of these houses is it's impossible to use all this space. I mean, how could you possibly spend time in 3 different living rooms? It's just a waste of space. Even in the United States, houses are so big compared to other parts of the world. And the reality is you do not use all that space. Is just wasted space that you're spending extra money on. And it's silly to think that you would spend, or people would spend, a lot of money on a lot of space that they don't actually use. But that's what we're all after, isn't it? And number 9 is paying 2,000 times more for a public resource that's basically free. You know, this one might be a sensitive topic and I might get some pushback from it, but I have to say it. It is silly when people spend exuberant amounts of money on bottled water. I mean, the history of the bottled water industry is fascinating, where you have this industry that has literally turned nothing into something, because 64% of bottled water is just filtered tap water that comes from municipal sources, but it costs 2,000 times. It's estimated to be 2,000 times the price of just tap water. I mean, you start putting pictures of the snow-capped mountains in Michigan and telling people that's where the water comes, and people just eat it up. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There aren't any snow-capped mountains in Michigan. It's the same with words. You put certain words like mineral or spring and people eat it up and they'll spend extreme amounts of money on those words. You know, water is important and not everyone has the luxury of going to the tap to drink the water. I even use a filter because this house is 150 years old. But it's silly to think that you would spend 2,000 times the price on a public resource that's basically free. And the 10th thing is pay more money to avoid simple tasks. There are many things in this world that people spend their money on and spend a lot of money on that are just extremely simple tasks. For example, coffee. Coffee is extremely easy to make. All you need is coffee grinds, water, and a machine. And normally, the machine does all the work. But a lot of people want to avoid that simple task, so they pay someone to do it. And simple tasks like making a cup of coffee or bringing your lunch to work don't cost that much money, but cost a lot of money when you pay someone to do it because you just want to avoid the simple task. As I said, spend your money however you want, but that don't stop it from being silly. It's silly to think that people would avoid simple tasks and just pay a lot of money to do them for someone else to do them instead. And number 11 is putting a lot of unnecessary stress on yourself. Money is the root to a lot of our problem. Money creates a lot of stress in our lives, but I think that a lot of this stress is just self-imposed. I think about something like a house. Many people choose to live in a very big house, but with that comes a lot of stress. There's a high mortgage payment. You have to do a lot of yard work, and there's a lot of upkeep of the house, and it's hard, it's stressful. But if you just chose to live in a smaller place, you would get rid of a lot of those stresses. I just think that a lot of problems that we have in our lives are just self-imposed. And I think that it's funny to think how stressful it is in the United States, because I think that a lot of this stress is directly related to just overconsumption and how we spend our money. And the 12th thing is living life on a bet. I want to end on this. As I said in my last video, I quit my job to take some time to live life on my terms. And one quote that inspired me to make that decision is the biggest risk in life is not doing what you want on the bet that you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. We have removed everything related to death from our society. I mean, people don't even like to see the bones from the animal they're eating. And we act as if death is something that happens to other people, but not us. And we act as if growing old is guaranteed, but all we have and all we'll ever have is the present. And if I'm fortunate enough to live to old age, I just want to look back knowing that I took the risks that I wanted to take. I pushed through the fear and I never stopped dreaming. I don't care if I fail or if I don't succeed in everything I want to do. I just want to look back and say, I did my best. And it's silly to think that we can get in this state of mind thinking that tomorrow is guaranteed and spend our whole lives on the bet that we can buy ourselves the freedom to do it later. I mean, it is hilarious. So with that, thank you so much for watching. My name is Austin. Muchas gracias. Que tengan un buen día. Nos vemos, chicos.